Hey guys, what is up, and I welcome each and every one of you to a new League of Legends video. So today we're going to be taking an early look into patch 9.4 because there are already quite a bit of changes to discuss. So if you guys end up enjoying this video, then don't forget to hit that like button, and as usual, this video will be made in collaboration with Pro Guides. Pro Guides is now free and I highly recommend checking it out if you want to climb ranked this season. They also offer a 24/7 one-on-one coaching, which is pretty cool. The link is down below. So the first thing that I actually want to talk about is going to be some changes coming over to Zed, and the changes are as follows. First, we have the attack speed growth per level being increased by just over 1%. We have his Q ability, Raise Your Shuriken. The damage on this ability is going up with the earlier ranks for the base damage, but going slightly down as you rank it up by rank 5. However, the bonus attack damage scaling is going up by 10%. Following this, we also have his W, Living Shadow, where the recast range has been increased up to 1950, which is actually quite large. So now you can use your second effect of the W, where you take the shadow at a much longer distance, which I think is fantastic. And the cooldown on this ability is also being lowered by 2 seconds at rank 1, but then it evens out back to 14 at rank 5. And the final thing is his ultimate death mark. No longer does it have Reaper of Shadows, where you get the extra AD based on the target that you just killed. So what does this really mean for Zed? Well, essentially what this means is the fact that Zed's laning phase is going to be a little bit more powerful now that the shurikens are doing a bit more damage, now that the cooldown on your W is also 2 seconds lower since you maxed your W last. All in all, a better laning phase. This will hurt his late game a little bit and also his mid game, but I think that's kind of worth it for the amount of extra damage and power you get in the earlier parts of the game, and his late game really shouldn't be too much affected regardless. I mean, sure, you won't have the ultimate extra AD coming out of that, but the attack speed growth is going to be quite nice, and plus you have 10% extra bonus AD scaling on your Qs. But again, the TLDR, his laning phase is going to be more powerful. His mid game might be a tad weaker, but his late game should be more or less about the same, if not maybe just a tad weaker. But at least you'll hopefully snowball the game a bit harder. Also, if you guys want me to do a full gameplay on the PBE server of the new Zed changes and how he plays and feels, etc., let me know by simply either leaving a comment or hitting the like button, and I'll try to get that out for you guys as fast as possible. Following this, however, let's go into some changes coming over to Reksai, where the first of which is going to be kind of a quality of life, where her Fury bar now changes colors from yellow to red when full. But then moving on to her Q ability, her Burrowed Q now has a new effect that generates 25 Fury if it hits champion. Now this is actually quite a bit, because usually what Reksai wants to do is use your full combo and get enough Fury fast enough to get the true damage coming out of the E ability for just fast burst damage. And this change will make that a lot easier to do. Another change to her Burrowed W is the fact that Tremor Sense visual effects loudness has been significantly increased, so it's a lot easier to tell if a champion is around you. And then her ultimate now has a buff as well, where she becomes untargetable at the start of casting rather than after casting, so it's a lot easier to dodge abilities and stuff like that as well. And on top of this, it can now only be dodged if the enemies teleport a significant distance, aka greater than 1,000 units. So some pretty significant buffs coming over to Reksai. I mean, the ultimate is going to be very difficult to dodge unless you take like a Thresh Lantern or just go over a wall entirely. And the burst damage from Reksai is going to come out a little bit faster now because of the extra added Fury whenever you land a Burrowed Q. But next, let us move on to the newest champion so far in League of Legends, and that's going to be Silas. They're going to be buffing his Q2, which is the second part of the Q, to be a bit more reliable to actually hit the target, which I'm assuming is that little spark or whatever that it leaves on the ground that detonates and does extra damage. They're also removing the monster reduction on the second part of the Q and made W much more forgiving and less likely to be interrupted. But on top of that, his W Kingslayer, the heal on this ability has been lowered as you rank it up, so by rank 5, it's going to be 20 less, which, I mean, honestly, isn't really all that crazy considering how much it actually heals already. So some nerfs and buffs coming over to Silas. Again, buffs to the Q, nerfs to the W, which is kind of what I expected to happen because that's exactly what needed to happen. But either way, I don't think this should change Silas around too much, and he should still feel more or less the same. Moving along to the next change, we have somewhat of a mini rework coming over to Vi. We've talked about it before, but it's back on the PBE server, and there's a good chance that it'll come out this coming patch. The changes are as follows. We have her base AD and attack speed both being lowered, but then moving on to her passive Blast Shield, the cooldown has been changed to being 12 seconds at all ranks rather than starting at 12 going down to 18. The shield size has been changed from 10% max health to now being 15% max health, and has a new effect as well, where the shield CD is reduced by 3 seconds whenever you proc denting blows, which is her W. Moving along to her Q ability, you're going to notice that the base damage has been cut significantly, but that's also because the ratio has been changed from being 160% bonus AD to now being 140% total AD. On top of this, it no longer deals reduced damage to minions and monsters, which is fantastic since Vi jungle is usually the way you want to play the champion, and this will definitely make her jungle clear not only faster, but a lot healthier as well. Then we have her W denting blows, where the attack speed has been changed from starting at 30 going up to 50 to now starting at 20 but going all the way up to 60, so a little bit weaker early but definitely stronger later. Moving on to her E ability, it now has a buffed up effect where the follow-up attack after hitting with the E ability works better with attack speed, or at least it scales better with attack speed. The AD ratio in this ability has been lowered by 5%, which isn't too much, but the AP ratio, oddly enough, has been increased actually by 20%, and on top of this, the AoE of the E ability can now crit, which is going to probably make for some pretty spicy and interesting Vi builds. Maybe we'll even start seeing crit Vi. But it does not stop there just yet, because there is still her ultimate. The damage on this has been increased, where you can see the base damage is significantly higher as you rank it up. However, it does actually scale less by 30%. No longer does it deal reduced damage to additional targets, which is actually quite powerful. The CC duration on secondary targets that you pass through as you're going to your main targets has been increased almost to a full second, which is actually surprisingly quite a bit. The knockback distance on secondary targets has also been increased, which makes it even more powerful, and the cooldown unfortunately has been increased as well. So all in all, it feels like Vi is gonna definitely make a comeback for sure. It feels like her wave clear and jungle clear is gonna be a bit more powerful. It feels like her E ability is gonna be really strong. She'll scale a lot better off of attack speed and crit items as well, because her E AoE can now crit. Her ultimate is gonna be a lot more useful as a utility ability, on top of also bursting people down at the early to mid game. And I'm gonna be very curious to see how Vi's win rate is affected. Following this, I want to talk about 3 visual reworks that are going to be hitting, I'm assuming, in this coming patch. And those changes are going to be to, first of all, Kennen. Now, Kennen's looks absolutely amazing. As you can see from some of the screenshots right here on your screen, he looks so much better. And I think Riot is really good at doing these kind of changes, because the champions just feel so much more fluid and much more up to date. The next champion that's getting a visual rework or change or update is going to be Olaf. Also a very old champion that definitely could have used some extra assistance there, and his abilities look a lot cleaner. And the final champion is going to be none other than Riven. Riven is probably a champion that didn't need it as much as the other 2 champions, but it doesn't hurt regardless, and it looks absolutely stunning with her new abilities, and just everything looks a lot more fluid and just much more appealing to look at. So I'm sure the players of these champions are going to be very happy with these changes. Now moving along, they haven't shipped anything yet to the PBE servers, but they did talk about how for the next patch they want to get some Yasuo nerfs in, because apparently Yasuo looks a little too strong after the crit changes, and it's hard to disagree. Not only does Yasuo have more options now, because he can still go Phantom Dancer Infinity Edge and go pure tank and have a little bit less damage but a lot more tanky and durability, or he can still go for the Static Shiv Infinity Edge, and the damage on that build is absolutely disgusting. So Riot is going to be probably nerfing Yasuo sometime this patch, though again it's just not on the PBE server yet, but I'll talk about it most likely if it does come when I do my final patch rundown. Next up, let's talk about some changes coming over to some of the new AD carry items. Starting off with Essence Reaver, it's been changed to now 20% cooldown reduction is being a unique passive, because apparently people have been stacking Essence Reaver since it wasn't a unique passive, and you get 40% CDR, and you get 120 AD, and you get 50% critical strike chance, which is pretty damn disgusting, but no longer is this a thing. Next up, some changes coming over to Kerch's Shard, Rapid Fire Cannon, Static Shiv, and Storm Razor. Pretty much the items that have that energized effect, because it's been changed to now it being a unique passive. But I'm almost positive, don't quote me on this, but from what I understand, it's trying to kind of make it all grouped up into one passive. So essentially, as you get extra passives with energized, instead of each of them having their own specific number, you have to read all of them specifically, it'll actually combine it all together. So based on how many you have, each of them will read the same thing, and it'll kind of stack on top of each other in just one item, so you can read how much damage it'll do with the energized auto attack off of one item, rather than having to add everything together yourself, which is, I think, a pretty nice change, assuming that's how it works. I could be wrong. And the final change that I'll be talking about in this video is going to be the rework of Conqueror. Now, I did make a full gameplay of this with Yasuo on the PBE server, showing you guys how the new Conqueror works and just how disgustingly powerful it is, but the change is as follows. Attacks or spells that deal damage to an enemy champion grant 3 to 15 adaptive force based on level for 3 seconds and 8 seconds for melees. It stacks up to 5 times, and when fully stacked, heals for 10% of the damage dealt to champions and converts 10% of that to true damage. So in other words, this new Conqueror is essentially the old Fervor of Battle combined with the current live Conqueror, put into one, throw it into a blender, and this is essentially what we got. You don't need me to tell you that this sounds pretty damn busted. I don't really understand why Riot's making it this busted. I'm assuming it'll get tweaked down by just a bit or something to make it sound less busted, but yeah, it's a pretty powerful keystone, and if this comes out this way to the live service, I will be a little bit surprised. But either way, guys, that is going to be about it for this video. There you have it, a bunch of changes on the PvE server already. Let me know down in the comments below, what do you think of these changes already? Do you think the changes to Zed is good? What do you think of the Conqueror rework and all the other ones as well, like Vi, for instance, which is a pretty big change, and everything else as well. But either way, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy the video, then don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't, check out my other videos as well, and I'll see you for the next one. Peace.